Let's start with the first session of ArchInTrend by Platform at MADEexpo Fair. The first architect on the stage is Peter Pichler from Peter Pichler Architecture.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you, Simona, and the whole platform team to be here today. As we just have 20 minutes, I will speed up a little bit and start immediately with the talk. Just as a very quick introduction, I wanted to tell my story, how I got introduced in architecture. This is a photo of an image of the artist Walter Pichler, the Austrian artist Walter Pichler, which was a cousin of my dad. And the ones who don't know him, he was one of the driving forces in Vienna or in Austria, or even like, of course, beyond that, a radical scene of architects and artists of the 60s and 70s. So he was working together with Hans Hollein, and of course there are some famous names from this 60s, 70s scenes like Haus Rucker, Coop Himmelbau, and so on. And while I was at high school, I was doing a technical school there, and I didn't know really what to study. I thought I could study architecture, but I didn't even really know what architecture means. And exactly that period, my dad got in touch with Walter again, and there was a little project close to my hometown in Bolzano, which is called Die Schmiede, which is like a blacksmith, because my grandfather was actually a blacksmith. And so I got involved in this little project, and at that time, I understood that architecture is probably not just a technical profession, but could be something else, something more, even if today maybe I think a little bit different. But at that time, it was very funny to work with him on this furniture design of this little project. So this is actually his hometown, St. Martin in Passaio, in Burgenland of Walter, where he created like these fantastic little houses on his property for his sculpture. And he always said that the biggest prize in that sense, what he achieved, is to be like a honorable citizen of the municipality of St. Martin, because he could build like the structures for his art without any building permit. Then I went to London. I was working abroad in several studios. I also finished up in the office at Zaha Hadid, where I got known the first day, not because I was so great in the office, but rather because I used Zaha's private restroom, but that's another story. And then in 2015, I found, together with my wife Silvana, that is also here next to us, the office in Milan. So this is our team. These are our values. So we strongly believe in tradition and evolution in tradition. We think that with, especially if we connect our projects to tradition, the client can probably understand or reflect better on our design and what we're doing. So this connection is very important for us. And of course, sustainability, as we all know, the building industry, as we are here today in this fair, we are responsible for approximately 40% of CO2 emissions. So I think we, as young generation of architects, this is something that we need to have a radical approach towards it. Of course, for us it's important wherever we build, because we have projects also abroad, to understand the culture, to understand the society, and to understand the zeitgeist. So I think that our project should absolutely reflect this value wherever we build and what we do. And then, of course, research and technology is very important in our studio. Yeah. So these are the projects we're currently working. The first one that I will show also later is a headquarter. It was an international competition for Bonfiglioli. Their new headquarters in Bologna that is currently under construction. We have another construction sites in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi, that we're working currently. This one are some research projects that we're also then building actually. On the top left, this is a radical approach towards tourism with tree houses that are connected to hotels or other public spaces. We're working on a project in Berlin that we will break ground soon. Another project in Austria, the Fakosee, which will also break ground soon, and another project in Abu Dhabi and in Putbus in Germany that I will show now. So what is actually context? Like context, for us context goes beyond beyond immediate physical surroundings, but context is largely shaped by different parameters. These parameters could be political, geographical, societal, economical, and of course as well vernacular as a context. So what is vernacular? This is an image of Bernard Rudowski from the 60s, who had a show at the MoMA in New York, which was called Architecture Without Architects, where he really analyzed structures from 100 years ago, where the profession of the architect there was not really a profession at the architect at that time. And so this is something, these are some images that inspire us and are basically the foundation of our research and project. And talking about vernacular architecture, this is one example. This was a competition we were winning back in 2016, where we had the office for 1 year. This is the Oberholz mountain hut. It was a competition for a mountain hut on 2,000 meters. So basically we start all our projects with images like this to understand local tradition, to understand building materials, how they used to build, and to then give a contemporary interpretation of that. So this is a simple sketch of this hut, a diagram, which is basically a structure of this restaurant that is almost like a fallen tree with these 3 branches that are looking towards the 3 main mountains. So here you see the site plan. And this is then the build project. So you see the 3 mountains. We slightly rotated the whole hut because there's another main mountain behind the clouds here. So as you see again, this is the integration of the landscape, and what you see here, the very typical sloped roof, a wood construction, and then when you go on the inside, you see this contemporary interpretation that I was talking before of this open space, which there is a very typical room which is called die Stube in the central, let's say, Alto Adige, Austria, or even Germany. And for us, this was like a contemporary interpretation of it. So you see at the same time here in plan, there is the division of the public spaces like the restaurant and the bar, and the more private spaces, and you have this wall that basically defines that spaces where everything is either above ground or underground. So these are some construction images. Of course, it's difficult to build on 2,000 meters, so you need to adapt on that. Of course, technology, what I mentioned before, to develop the structure, to test the structures. Actually, we don't use parametric software to really develop architecture, but rather to modify it somehow or to optimize it together with the engineers in very early stages. So for this project, we also designed the furniture completely. This was also funny to bring it up to 2,000 meters. Concrete sink, quite heavy. So here you see again this wall that defines the public space and the private space, and as well shows the above ground and underground with the structure, the detail that touches it. And it's somehow an example where nature is very important and where the idea is to frame nature. So these are other projects. As I mentioned before, I would say this radical approach towards tourism with new ideas. These are a project we developed with a startup in Germany, in different locations, in Austria and in Germany. Kind of treehouse structures that should blend within nature, where the core idea is really to, instead of building the classic hotel and use a lot of soil to create these single structures, that basically don't really have a concrete foundation but a screw foundation, so in theory they could be removed after it. And the concept is that these tree houses are working together with a public facility, in this case a mountain hut, that is also in our case a new way of representing a mountain hut with a more open spaces from the inside, because it's always the problem in the summer that people want to sit actually outside and there is a lot of umbrellas, so we actually, the idea is to bring that people inside again but to open the entire facade for the view. So it's basically a 180-degree view within this structure. This is the launch area on top. This is a similar project that we presented this year at the Salone del Mobile, that we are currently working on with 6 sensors next to Kitzbühel in Austria. We call this the vertical chalet. So it's basically a wood construction as well, where you have your hotel rooms in this case that are connected to the main hotel. And again, this idea of connection with nature, that you are within this like nest-like structure on the top of the trees, and you feel this very strong connection to nature. I think that's the main idea behind this project here. Another similar project in the US we're working on in Dawson Lake, and this was an early concept, which is not a tree house, but it works in a similar way, that it's not a hotel structure, but it's our single units, the mirror houses, that we actually, was our first project in the office, a structure that opens on the other side, on the east side for the guests, and then has a mirrored facade on the back to totally fade into the landscape and to be almost invisible. So of course another issue in our office, very important, is how to reuse existing structures. So this was a competition we did, I think it was in 2017, for a hotel. We got invited to participate in this competition. What you see down there in the photo is the existing hotel, how it looked before. It's in Alto Adige, in the Seiseralm, Alpe di Siusi. Maybe a few of you know that. Quite known for skiing there, and for hiking as well. So we got invited to this competition, and the client really had a very clear idea what he wanted to do. He wanted to have a flat roof, and the neighbor just built a new hotel with a lot of saunas. So he was basically telling us we should have more saunas, that we need to have a bigger pool and all this stuff. And we said like, no, we don't need that. And I think the only thing what we need there as a concept is to bring the mountain back in the hotel. And that's actually what we did with a simple idea of local materials, chalk. This is the Dolomitgestein, and the idea of using local wood there. So this was our competition. This was the competition entry that we then won. Thanks also to the young kids of it, because I think they were quite ready for something new and something contemporary. This is the built hotel that opens towards the village, and then on the other side, south, the rooms and the suites that are facing towards the mountain. So we wanted to create a very transparent building. What you see here in the back is the church of the village. So a very transparent building that opens towards the mountains, and also with the interiors to create this warm feeling, but a contemporary interpretation of a certain alpine style. And it was also very nice to work with the son of the client, who's a photographer in Geneva, that did these amazing artworks for the public spaces and the single rooms. So I'm not going to show plans here right now. So what is important is this exoskeleton element. So for us, structure is very important. Structure for us is beauty. And in this case, you see this very simple sketch, this concept of the north facade versus the south facade. The exoskeleton that opens creates loggias. And at the same time, with these loggias, it's a self-shading system. Here's some other images of the interiors, the suites, these open spaces, a certain minimalism in these rooms. Again, to work with local stones, this rough cut, water cut in certain elements like the reception desk or the bar. These are things that we are basically interested. Also here we had like 3 months of construction. I think that works just in Südtirol, Alto Adige, or maybe in Austria as well, I guess, Germany. We did the same conversion of our studio here in Milan that took us like 5 months. Much, much smaller, of course. So here are some construction images and the final result. Yes. A similar project, also competition, we were winning. Almost all our entries are winning competitions. Also a hotel structure where we played with the scale and the idea of vernacular architecture and the contemporary interpretation of it again. So we see like this local structures behind the hotel where we took the same proportion and we were analyzing local patterns and transformed this kind of patterns into a structure again, into again exoskeleton element that then refers also to the profession actually of the family that comes from agriculture. So this was also something that inspired us for this facade. This is the final project. Also here we had like 4 months of construction. That was last year during the pandemic. So thumbs up to all the teams that were involved there in the construction. So we have again this contrast with dark wood facade on the outside with these details of this curvilinear exoskeleton facade, and then on the inside there is this contrast again with the bright wood, local wood for the bar spaces, the restaurant. Here we have the pool. Also here for the bar we were choosing like a local stone. And by the way, we just won a couple of last weekend an international prize for that hotel as well. Here you see like some rooms. Also the rooms have some spas inside the room, as you see here in the picture below, the pool. And when we talk about tradition, like here we are in Berlin, we're working with a developer on different projects on a private lake outside of Berlin. What is very interesting here, as I mentioned before, is the history, which is of course something very important to us. So this is actually a very interesting history on this lake, which is called Stienitzsee outside Berlin, where there are buildings like this one here that the client converted into a museum. And this was a Ziegelei, so at that time they produced like bricks. And the first project we are doing there is a private villa that is exactly also related to this material of the brick. So we are creating this villa out of brick. We analyze different densities, depths to work with this brick, and of course to create like an open facade towards the lake. And this is another project we're working in Austria currently at the Falkersee, also a very nice location where in this case the transparency is very important to us to create this residential development. Of course this amazing view towards the landscape, the nature. So these are some images of the penthouse, what you see from there. We are probably breaking ground in January with this project here. So again, this idea also with the facade, with the material to create like, to take like a local stone, a local marble for this project. Another project in Germany, Putbus. I go a bit faster because I think then our time is quite limited today, and so we'll let free space for the next speaker. But also here the context, the history is very important of this existing building, which is kind of what we see here on the diagram on the left, which is a pedagogium, which at that time was like a university building, and it's an extension to it with a mixed-use development of a hotel and residential in this case. So the idea was to bring in the park, the adjacent park, to create these courtyards inside and to work with the facade, with the proportions of the existing building, to create openings and to work with that history in that case. So this you will see here is the final project. In front you see the existing building, and we try to work with these saddle roofs to extend them to create these 2 internal piazzas and to work in the facade exactly with the same proportion of the existing building, but just blowing everything up that it becomes again a visible structure, an exoskeleton structure with much more light. This was an installation we have done at the Salone del Mobile. It was like 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 2018. It was a pavilion made of 1,600 wooden sticks with a weight of almost like 2.5 tons in the center of Milan. So it was like this wing-like structure that filters the light, and you could actually sit down there at these benches, which was people really like that because they're partying a lot during Salone del Mobile, so they had like a chance to sit down in this structure and enjoy this playfulness of light and shadow. This is a competition we were also winning that we are actually also see there on the panels. I wanted to show a little video. This is the competition entry we did for the Bonfiglioli headquarters in Milan, which is one of the biggest mechatronic companies in Europe. We were able to win that competition, and now there should be a video that starts here. Maybe we need to put this sound a bit up.
The new Bonfiglioli headquarters, located in the outskirts of Bologna, Italy, arises from the need to create an efficient and a functional office building that expresses the proud history of the Italian company. The headquarters is the last missing piece in a larger development called EVO, with the new production spaces and offices. I think that our aim was to create an open building that connects people and at the same time has a radical approach towards sustainability with an intelligent geometry. Starting point of the project was to introduce the courtyard typology of the existing master plan buildings into our massing. The courtyard has a green garden at the ground floor and creates natural ventilation. As a reaction to the local sunlight conditions, by sloping the building's roof, the north-facing facade are enlarged to maximize the workspaces with indirect natural light conditions. At the same time, this reduces the south-facing facades, which improves internal comfort, and almost a celebration of the indirect north light expressed by the geometry of the building. South-facing facades and roof of the headquarters features a second skin made of a continuous pleated custom aluminum mesh. The second skin filters the harsh light to obtain a comfortable interior work environment, while recalling the metal shavings that are produced daily as a byproduct from the company's supply chain.
The structural concept is based on the perfect integration with the architectural intent and design. This is particularly evident in the exoskeleton, which is at the same time one of the main structural element component of the building. It is also an element that characterizes quite strongly the architectural concept. This envelope becomes then the roof, which is almost a fifth facade.
The Bonfiglioli headquarters is an exemplary project in terms of sustainability and environmental design. The low-carbon design, achieving a self-sufficiency of the building in terms of energy. Second is the great attention to the health and well-being in this post-pandemic era. And the third is the application of circular economy principles in order to maintain the capacity of the building to be adapted to the future needs of the client.
If we look at this sloped roof, on each level we have a terrace, so you can basically from every level go to the terrace and have like a break, have like informal meetings there, which we believe is really increasing the quality of these office spaces. And at the same time you have this beautiful views towards the San Luca sanctuary and the city of Bologna.
Yes, as explained in the video, it's really something that we like to approach. In this case, we won a competition together with Arup, and it was really since the beginning to develop an intelligent geometry. In this case, a celebration of the North light in these offices, and then this idea to shelter, to filter the light in with the harsh south light with this pleated aluminum mesh. And so you have this open north facade where we have all the office spaces, as we can see here. And then with, again, this exoskeleton to have maximum flexibility on the inside of the floor plan, Then, of course, this courtyard that works perfectly for ventilation, natural ventilation of the offices. And then the south facade, which is completely filtered with this pleated aluminum mesh. Yes, with this project, we broke ground a couple of weeks ago. I think the last two projects, very quick, is a project in Abu Dhabi, as I talked before, about context and culture, which is very, very interesting, of course, to work in different locations. In this case, this very strong cultural identity of the Middle East, and we had, I think, a very interesting client that also was pretty much open to experiment with this villa, basically. It's a villa that is, as a concept, has a water element, a pool on the inside, and on the outside it's filtered with this mesh rabiah, which is a very typical element in the Middle East. So you have this filtered light on the outside and a more closed facade, and then on the inside it's opening. So this is some construction site images. Also here we try to create an intelligent geometry. Of course we have sunlight that in this case is an enemy. So through this customized custom mesh rabiah, we can have this effect again of filtering the light. These are some images of the skylight that then will be filtered on top with internal atrias and courtyards. This is another project we're working there, always in Abu Dhabi. And this is the last project that I showed today, which is like, I think, another very important topic in our office, which is like landscape. And this villa, of course, is surrounded by a fantastic landscape. And the owner of a winery was asking us to design a villa for the daughter in this very unique location in Alto Adige. And actually the main driver for this project is a driver that is actually visible, and it's the wind, because there's a very strong wind that comes from Lago di Garda, which is called Ora. And if you are on this top of this hill next to Termeno, which is in the south of Alto Adige, we try to create a villa that is almost like a ribbon-like structure that emerges out of the landscape and creates like an internal courtyard that can protect you from the wind, as you can see here in these diagrammatic images. And at the same time, the villa is almost invisible from the village town. So these are some construction images. Of course, the reference as material-wise, we took it like with this chalk as the inspiration for this concrete roof from the setback walls of the vineyard. So it was basically this continuation of the landscape then on top. And these are some construction images. And then the final images. And we just finished this villa a couple of months ago. Sorry, this was a bit fast. So this is, you see the village town, some interior spaces. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Peter Pichler. I don't know if there's someone from the public who wants to make some questions. Non so se ci sia qualche domanda da parte del pubblico. Non fate i timidi. Niente, ok.
So thank you. I have some question about Bonfiglioli. When will start? When will end the project? Because I come from Bologna.
Okay. When we started, when we finished the project, actually we already started, like we broke ground in September, and in theory it should be finished at the end of next year. Yes. But yes, that's actually what is planned.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Grazie. Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you.
Ah, sì, sì. So, let me introduce you to Giancarlo Mazzanti from Equipo Mazzanti. Sì, questo l'ho usato io. Sì, grazie.
Buonasera, grazie mille per l'invito. Io parlerò in italiano comunque perché preferisco l'italiano che l'inglese. Allora, farò vedere un progetto per cui mi hanno invitato a far vedere, che è un ospedale che abbiamo fatto a Bogotà. Ancora non mi funziona bene questo.
Perché in teoria non dovremmo passare i microfoni.
Ecco, perfetto, va bene. Allora, andiamo indietro. Ecco.
Non era prevista perché dovevo perdere tempo.
Allora, presenterò di una maniera molto rapida l'Equipo Mazzanti, che è un studio di architettura con sede a Colombia e anche Spagna, e abbiamo fatto architettura tra le ultime 30 anni più o meno, e noi siamo composti da 3 gruppi, che è Mazzanti Architectos, che è un studio di architettura e l'ho fondato 30 anni fa. Horizontal, che è una fondazione che esplora le concettualizzazioni e l'implementazione delle diffusioni degli strumenti di disegno collaborativo e altri tipi di lavoro di ricerca intorno all'architettura. E poi c'è Jardin Parlanti, che vuol dire giardino parlanti, che è una piattaforma dedicata alla generazione di pensiero critico e alle discussioni sull'architettura generalmente. Farò vedere un progetto che abbiamo fatto per l'ospedale universitario della Fundacion Santa Fe alcuni anni fa, perlomeno 4-5 anni che abbiamo finito questo progetto. Parlerò un po' della urbanistica e dopo farò vedere come si fanno realmente gli ospedali in questi ultimi anni, cosa si potrebbe anche far cambiare in questo caso per fare un approccio diverso. Questo è un ospedale molto importante a Bogotà, nel nord della città, è uno degli ospedali più noti negli sviluppo. Questo era come si dice, il blocco dove c'è il progetto, e noi dovevamo fare il progetto nell'angolo a destra, dove era lì. C'è è un edificio che dovrebbe recuperare l'immagine della sua fondazione. È un edificio fatto nel 1960-70, e poi dopo gli hanno messo di diversi progetti intorno e che non sono ben fatti. Allora il progetto non è soltanto un progetto da un ospedale, è come si dovrebbe rifare questa idea di blocco dove c'è. Allora questo è il progetto, che hanno questo interesse di collegare questa parte e l'altra della città e fare un passaggio anche comunale, un passaggio della città in cui si potrebbe anche collegare l'ospedale come se fosse un spazio pubblico, come si può fare aperto un ospedale che non è soltanto una struttura chiusa per tutti. Abbiamo proposto nelle 2 angoli dei giardini, che dopo li farò vedere, e poi abbiamo messo questi giardini dentro dall'edificio in questo caso. Il progetto originale era questo, e noi abbiamo tentato di recuperare queste condizioni che c'è nell'inizio del progetto. Questa è una delle piazze che abbiamo proposto in alcuni degli angoli. Poi c'era questa idea di come si potrebbe mettere dentro ad un ospedale lo spazio pubblico, perché le ospedali sono pensate come se fossero delle cose chiuse che non si possono usare, che non sono per la città. Allora come si può ripensare in questo senso il problema? Questo è l'esercizio che abbiamo fatto. Si può anche camminare, c'è una piazza dove c'è un teatro nell'entrata su questa via che è molto importante, e poi l'altro piccolo spazio pubblico che c'è nell'angolo di quella parte. Allora, una delle domande che noi ci abbiamo fatto prima di fare il concorso, perché questo è fatto un concorso, ma come si potrebbe fare un ospedale dove l'umanizzazione del paziente è più importante che quello da essere non solo efficiente? Un ospedale per natura deve essere molto efficiente, molto rapido e molto collegato. Allora siamo interessati di come si potrebbe pensare in una umanizzazione, come si potrebbe fare altre cose, magari anomalie, dentro da uno spazio di un ospedale in questo caso. Queste sono le immagini dal concorso. Il progetto è fatto tutto in mattone, abbiamo anche sviluppato il mattone per questo progetto, dopo lo farò vedere meglio. E lo abbiamo fatto anche in mattone perché l'antico ospedale era in mattone e c'era parte. Come si progettano la maggior parte degli ospedali al mondo? Generalmente gli ospedali sono una risposta architettonica alle esigenze di efficacia e di massima utilità ospedaliere. Sono luoghi funzionali senza alcun rapporto con la umanizzazione del paziente. Come possiamo mettere questa umanizzazione del paziente? Si tratta di non ridurre il paziente alla sua malattia, ma considerare una persona che ha le sue preferenze, le sue aspettative, una vita, una persona con l'emozione e interesse oltre alla malattia. Questi sono degli schemi che si fanno sempre per un ospedale. Si devono collegare i punti di maniera più rapida e questo è importante in un tempo di un ospedale. Ma noi siamo interessati in questo caso di mettere dentro una cosa che noi chiamiamo l'anomalia di uso, come si potrebbe mettere dentro di un ospedale altri usi che non sono quelle soltanto fatte per la parte medica in questo caso. La proposta parte dall'idea di introdurre i nuovi usi e azioni all'interno dell'ospedale. Intese come anomalie, questi usi moltiplicano le attività e generano spazi di rilassamento e divertimento all'interno come un meccanismo di guarigione in questo caso. Allora abbiamo proposto dentro dell'ospedale un spazio per ballare. Perché? Perché per ballare? Questo fa parte da una cultura in cui il ballo è molto importante, ma quando tu sei seduto dentro di una sala di attesa per 3-4 giorni hai bisogno di rilassarti. Allora abbiamo proposto vicino alla sala d'attesa un spazio per fare delle biciclette, del ballo, di tutte queste cose che ti aiutano a sviluppare un altro tipo di uso e poi vedremo come si usano all'interno. L'altra cosa che abbiamo proposto mettere dentro dall'ospedale un gioco per i bambini del quartiere, con tutte le condizioni per non sentirli, di acustica in questo caso, ma abbiamo messo nella metà di questo spazio un spazio pubblico. E perché? Perché i pazienti che sono lì non si devono sentire fuori della città, fuori della vita, devono essere persone che hanno la vita dentro di. Allora quando metti i bambini dentro di un ospedale hai quel rapporto con i bambini che giocano dentro dell'ospedale anche. E poi l'altro che mettere nel piso 9, nel piano 9, abbiamo messo un farfalario e anche un piccolo giardino botanico. Dopo li farò vedere meglio in questo caso alcuni di questi progetti. Siamo interessati in sviluppare non solo un'architettura fatta di mattone, anche della materialità, siamo interessati in quello che può produrre l'architettura, quello che propizia, parola che in Italia non si utilizza molto, ma mi sembra che è molto più precisa, quello di propiziare atteggiamenti, usi, azioni dentro di un edificio. Questa è l'immagine del progetto che è fatto tutto in mattone, qui si vede parte dell'accesso, dall'entrata dal progetto e questo è uno delle anomalie. Questo è un giardino dove ci sono le farfalle nella metà dell'ospedale al piano 9. E si può andare lì, i pazienti, i medici, le persone possono andare a queste piccole, come si dice, balcone, dove si possono anche rilassare. E poi c'è una cosa molto importante per noi, sentire la città. Si vede che qui è il vetro e di là c'è il mattone, ma tu quando sei in questo giardino senti i rumori delle macchine, delle città, e questo è importante per le persone che sono in un ospedale, come sentire la città, come avere un altro rapporto. Tu sei ammalato, non è essere fuori della vita, si deve sentire parte della vita in questo caso. Immagine di questo piccolo, di questo giardino nella metà, è molto tropicale, molto vicino a quella cultura che abbiamo noi in Colombia, delle piante, di seminare delle cose, tutte queste cose in generale. Questa è un'immagine dei balconi dove possono andare anche i pazienti e possono essere lì e possono vedere un po' la città, essere collegati con altre cose in questo caso. L'altra cosa che è importante è in questo giardino, che vogliamo che la Fundazione Santa Fe, che è l'ospedale, possano anche fare. Mi sono collegato molto con la persona che ha parlato prima, perché noi abbiamo proposto in questo giardino un posto dove i pazienti e anche la famiglia del paziente può ricevere un piccolo albero. Ogni paziente che arriva all'ospedale riceve un piccolo alberino e la famiglia li deve curare in questo giardino, e dopo li portano a casa e lo devono seminare dentro della città, e abbiamo proposto un tipo di specie molto precisa e molto chiara con cui si potrebbe anche usare in questo caso. Allora, le persone vanno a questo spazio, curano anche gli alberi, e la cura degli alberi è un processo terapeutico che aiuta la famiglia nei processi di guarigione dei loro pazienti. Questo stesso effetto di contemplazione di spazi verdi e di piante che abbiamo voluto sviluppare. Allora, più o meno arrivano 20.000 persone, 20.000 pazienti all'anno, allora si potrebbe anche seminare in 10 anni più di 200.000 alberi. Se tutti gli altri ospedali e altre istituzioni seminano alberi, si potrebbe anche fare un bellissimo progetto urbano intorno alle alberi delle città. Queste sono delle prime cose. Un albero non costa niente, meno di sono 25 centimi di dollaro per farli seminare dentro della città. Allora il progetto è da una parte lavora con i pazienti, lavora con le condizioni mediche, ma dall'altra parte è un progetto forestale, un progetto che non solo ci sono delle piccole alberi che si seminano e che si portano a casa, anche lo stesso progetto dentro è diventato un progetto dove si possono anche mettere delle condizioni di piante aromatiche, altre cose, e tutta la parte del progetto è diventato un po' così. Questo è il progetto, questo è l'antico ospedale dove dobbiamo mettere tutto il progetto, e la diagonale che può collegare la carrera novena e poi la carrera settima, che sono le due importanti strade che ci sono intorno al progetto in questo caso. Non entrerò a spiegare il programma, ma il programma è fatto in diversi piani, dove le cose che ci interessava di più era come fare quel progetto in cui si poteva anche collegare alle persone che sono dentro con la città, anche con le piante, anche con un'altra maniera di fare un approccio. Questo era importante per noi. Queste sono le camere. Si vede che le camere sono aperte, tu sei nella città, hai una piccola finestra, ma c'è questa trasparenza, questa idea di essere collegato con l'esterno, anche con la città in questo caso. Tutto l'ospedale è pieno di luce. Questa è la parte di neonatale, dove i bambini hanno la possibilità di ricevere il sole e queste cose. Questo è un video che non so se c'è il suono.
Bogota of the 1990s. And brick by brick I was built. Since I was very young, I have devoted myself to the care of those who come to me. Each of my parts plays a role in getting me closer to what I want to do, help people. But each time I had less and less space. Everything got complicated because people began to feel uncomfortable. Although I've always been taught to be methodical, sober, and efficient, I have changed. I don't want to be the place where sick people go. I want to be the place where people can heal. I want it to be unconventional, operate differently, become an anomaly that helps healing. Now I have a big garden that works as a lung. I'm a tool for tranquility, relaxation, and fun. My skin is flexible, made of lightweight bricks that let light and heat pass through me. I'm bigger now, like veins. My halls branch out through the space. Now there's more light. My illuminated spaces are pleasant to wander through.
Allora parlerò della facciata, perché la facciata in un ospedale generalmente, soprattutto quando è fatta in mattoni, e lavora a compressioni. Mettiamo i mattoni una sopra l'altro e dovrebbe lavorare in compressione, ma questa condizione diventa un tipo di materiale in cui non è possibile aprire le stanze per avere un rapporto con la città. Allora abbiamo sviluppato una facciata che attua come un elemento autonomo dall'interno, si contrae e si dilata, permettendo diversi tipi di relazione a secondo dell'ambiente che si vuole produrre all'interno. In questo caso è più simile a un tessuto. Abbiamo fatto una facciata di mattone a tensione, non a compressione. L'abbiamo, come si dice in italiano, cuocere? Sì, coser. cucita il mattone, l'abbiamo anche messo a lavorare in tensione e lo abbiamo sviluppato anche con una piccola ditta a Medellin, e questo è il tipo di facciata che abbiamo sviluppato anche noi. Si vede dove c'è il vetro, una doppia facciata, e l'altra parte è quella del mattone che abbiamo messo a lavorare in tensione. Questo fa parte dalla costruzione, si vede che lavora come se fosse un tipo di tessuto che si può muovere, che può anche cambiare in questo caso. E quello ti dà una possibilità di essere collegato con la città, ma anche le stanze sono anche chiusi da fuori, puoi avere un rapporto molto diverso in questo caso. I mattoni mantengono un linguaggio omogeneo in ogni edificio dell'ospedale, ma ti danno la possibilità di aprire le stanze, di avere un altro tipo di rapporto con l'esterno in questo caso. E poi c'è una cosa anche per noi importante: noi lavoriamo molto con i moduli e sistemi adattativi. Questa facciata si può cambiare quando tu vuoi. Tu puoi cambiare i pezzi, puoi aprire delle finestre dove tu vuoi, dipendendo da che cosa può succedere con l'ospedale tra alcuni anni dopo. Allora tu puoi togliere alcuni dei pezzi di mattone e poi li puoi mettere in un'altra parte, e poi anche rifare sempre un po' questa idea di mattoni. Questo è un video, se mi puoi mettere, allora, non so se si può vedere il video. Questo è un video dove le persone stanno facendo, abbiamo sviluppato un sistema molto semplice di lavoro. Noi non abbiamo alla Colombia una tecnologia molto grande. Questo è un semplice metodo di mettere il mattone con un pezzo di alluminio. È molto semplice. E poi puoi fare anche lo stesso. Puoi cambiare quando tu vuoi, puoi aprire e puoi fare delle cose molto, molto più facili in questo caso. Allora, questo è uno del mock-up che abbiamo fatto dentro del giardino dello studio. Come si può cambiare ognuna di queste parti? Erano delle prove che abbiamo fatto all'interno dello studio, e poi si vede come si può muovere questa facciata come se fosse veramente un tessuto. Abbiamo dovuto anche mettere questa facciata dentro delle prove all'università perché c'era un problema, perché l'abbiamo fatto veramente quasi di una maniera molto artigianale. Qui si vedono che abbiamo fatto delle mostre, poi c'erano queste condizioni delle scalature molto forti, e più forti che un tipo di mattone che è duro e pesante, che si può fratturare. In questo caso si muove con il sismo. Noi abbiamo un sismo molto grande in questo caso. Allora, queste sono delle immagini delle sale di attesa, degli spazi verdi all'interno, quelle di un mattone che ti lascia vedere anche la città, il verde, gli spazi per essere le famiglie, anche avere un rapporto molto diverso in questo caso. Va bene, adesso per finire farò vedere alcuni dei progetti che abbiamo fatto di maniera molto più rapida, che abbiamo fatto. Noi abbiamo lavorato abbastanza nei progetti educativi per fare asili nidi, progetti modulari che si possono ripetere. Noi abbiamo fatto 21 asili nidi in 2 anni nel nord della Colombia con lo stesso pezzo, come se fosse un sistema, come se fosse un Lego. Si può anche ripetere i progetti e si hanno fatti in una maniera molto rapida. Un altro asilo nido, e c'è questa una piccola scuola in quartiere fuori di Bogotà, la scuola svizzera anche a Bogotà, una scuola per la comunità nera nel nord della Colombia, nel Caraibe, una scuola per Shakira, per la cantante, scuole nel centro della Colombia, scuole pubbliche, sempre un po' fuori nella periferia. Noi abbiamo lavorato in questi ultimi 30 anni soltanto progetti pubblici, non facevamo cose private, non abbiamo interesse di lavorare solo nella parte privata, siamo più interessati nella parte pubblica e abbiamo un approccio molto chiaro sulle parte pubbliche, università, scuole, in questo caso un altro asilo nido, la Università del Campus Biomedico a Roma, e un'altra università alla Colombia, più scuole e infrastruttura per la salute, quello che ho fatto vedere, la Fundacion Santa Fe a Bogotà, altri progetti di ospedale nel centro della Colombia, un altro edificio per la Fondazione. Adesso stiamo facendo questo che è appena spazi pubblici, come si dice questo? Copertina, non si dice copertina, sì, una copertura per fare lo sport, spazi anche siamo molto interessati, adesso stiamo ricercando abbastanza intorno a come si potrebbe sviluppare la campagna, il problema della campagna fuori di città, che ci sono dei grandi progetti di infrastruttura, ma come possiamo collegare questi progetti con progetti sociali nei parchi, anche nei diversi tipi di progetti, un parco a Bogotà, un grandissimo parco anche a Bogotà, progetti per bordi di fiume, a Paramaribo in Suriname, oppure a Santa Marta, Medellin, anche all'Uruguay, progetto di Panama City, tutto il bordo, più di 35 km di bordo di costiera, progetti culturali come la Biblioteca Spagna, che è molto conosciuta in molti progetti da molti anni fa, e progetti come altre biblioteche a Medellin, un museo al nord della Colombia, progetto del Museo di Arte Odierna anche a Barranquilla, infrastrutture sportivi come questi progetti per fare dei giochi sudamericani, anche un velodromo a Medellin che si dovrebbe fare in questi anni. Questa è una ristrutturazione di un antico palazzo sportivo, uno stadio, progetti di altro tipo. Poi ci sono anche dei progetti c'è un progetto un grattacielo anche, e infrastrutture di alberghi, in questo caso alberghi anche, ci sono delle cose molto più pubbliche in questo caso, centri di eventi, progetti per diversi tipi di congressi, queste cose. Ho fatto un giro molto rapido da che cosa facevamo noi alla Colombia, ma lo studio Mazzanti è sempre interessato nelle proposte pubbliche di come l'architettura può propiziare diversi tipi di atteggiamenti, di relazioni, qual è il vero lavoro dell'architetto, qual è la domanda che noi stiamo facendo. Non è un problema di fare belle immagini, ma come si dobbiamo collegare con le condizioni veramente culturali e con quello che noi chiamiamo il comune, le condizioni comuni di tutti noi, e come ripensare a fare un'architettura più vicina alle persone, ma anche molto semplice, in cui non abbiamo bisogno di fare più cose di quelle per fare belli oggetti, è quello di risparmiare per fare un mondo che possa avvicinarsi, avere una condizione più vicina a quello del calentamiento globale, si dice anche così. Ma come si potrebbe fare un'architettura semplice, di maniera più sociale e più rapida in questo caso? Niente, molte grazie per l'invito, è un piacere essere con voi.
Grazie mille Giancarlo, vediamo se c'è qualche domanda da parte del pubblico.
Buonasera.
Buonasera.
Rispetto al progetto che abbiamo visto prima di Peter, dove la committenza era fondamentalmente privata, quindi il dialogo con un albergatore, un proprietario della villa, queste cose qua. Per voi, quando vedo Santa Fe, quando ho visto il progetto Santa Fe mi viene da pensare alla complicazione dei contatti che dovete aver avuto con i vari utilizzatori, non dico permessi, ma proprio...
Hai vinto il concorso, e quello per me è l'unico dispositivo veramente chiaro e anche democratico per fare architettura, perché tutti possono arrivare a fare questi edifici, perché quando non lo so qui, ma quando si vince un concorso in Colombia, il bando dalla giuria è come se fosse una legge, deve essere così, non li può cambiare nessuno dentro. E questo è importante, perché sennò perché si fanno i concorsi? Perché gli altri li possano cambiare dopo o perché la giuria li fa in questo caso?
È chiaro, voglio dire, rispetto però a quello che succede qui è abbastanza, non dico utopico, ma non siamo troppo distanti.
Io ho lavorato anche in Italia abbastanza, ho fatto anche i concorsi, mi sono messo, abbiamo fatto un concorso per il Corriere la Sera, che voi siete stati anche lì, in cui abbiamo proposto delle cose che non sono usuali. È un problema di immaginazione e di mettersi avanti per far cambiare le cose.
È indubbio.
Perché voi vi pesa troppo che non si può fare. Si può fare. Ci sono delle strade, sempre si possono fare.
Perfetto, concordo. Grazie.
Ecco.
Grazie.
Grazie a voi.
Thank you so much, Giancarlo. I'm so glad to invite Stefanos Maniatis from Mold Architects.
E loro ti dicono di no?
Assolutamente.
Grazie a voi.
Do you prefer?
Also, I'm Stefanos Maniatis. I'm architect at Mold Architects in Greece. Our founder and director, Iliana Kerestedzi, would have loved to be here. She just gave birth to a baby girl, so she sends her greetings. So Mold Architects was founded in 2011 in Athens, in Greece. We are a small practice of 6 to 7 in-house architects, undertaking an also small number of projects in order to be able to maintain our absolute focus and deep engagement with every single one of them, regardless their size or budget. For that same reason, whenever possible, we are also trying to take on the construction management of our projects. Our projects are located all around Greece, mostly in islands. So it is in such unique environments that architecture is called to redefine its position and invent new ways of adapting in the environment. So for the reason that, actually, yeah, sorry for that. We have, because all of our projects are all around Greece, we have developed an unconventional working environment. So a team, or actually, sorry for that, yeah, moves to those, or some of the practice moves to those locations. So living and working in the environment we are called to be, let us better understand the genius loci. And on top of that, it promotes a deeper bonding between the members of the team who, apart from working together, they're also sharing a common life. Our approach integrates architecture, landscape, advanced computational design, parametric design, interior design, visual arts, and construction management. Our work focuses on a constant effort to weave traditional concepts and expressions of heritage into a modern vocabulary. Our design orientation and principles involves the reinvention of traditional typologies, the merging of the structures with the surroundings, the modulation of form and light, the promotion of craftsmanship, all at the same time with the use of new technologies, all of that in order to create a fresh, but let's say above all, humane architecture. In this short time of this presentation, we selected to briefly present you with some of our projects. The first project I'm going to show you is actually our first project, the one we first realized back in 2014. The vacation house is on Serifos Island and has been designed as a composite terrace on a steep slope. The Cycladic landscape is dominated by a series of dry stone walls called pezules, whose function was to retain the precious soil and convert the barren land into cultivated areas. The element of the dry stone walling here is transformed into the main tool of design, which defines the enclosed spaces, shapes the courtyards, protects the house from the northern winds, and frames the views. Every exterior living space is proposed as an extension of the interior, forming in between transitional spaces, connecting this way dwelling with nature. As a result, the landscape retains its unique morphology, and the house naturally follows the flow of the slope. Kelly Hotel is located on Serifos Island again. It's a project of around 2,000 square meters, and it's a large project for the island standards. So our basic aim was to intervene to the location moderately and integrate the complex into the site. The traditional cell-like structures of Serifos are the starting point of the design and our basic design unit. It's a space of rectangular plan with planted roof with an enclosed courtyard. 4 cell types are placed vertically to the slope, unrolling horizontally, and the cell arrangement reinscribes its trace on the foot of the hill with a highly scattered trace, creating a new contour line, let's say. The composition's horizontal design is interrupted by vertical excursions, the towers, which house a 5th type of 2-storied rooms. The design here is focused on the outdoor living. A Greek philosopher once said that living in Greece is an outdoor activity. 8 months a year, a person can live happily on the countryside. For that same exact reason, we focused on designing exterior spaces of living, dining, gathering. We basically created a secondary set of outdoor rooms and communal areas of different and varying spatial qualities, which are conceived as the extension of the interior, and thus they're trying to integrate to the surrounding landscape. As a result, the hotel becomes a place of wellness, where you can get in touch with nature, with a local tradition, a place where you can actually, let's say, coexist. So Infinity Project was a really challenging one to decide. At the foot of a hill, there is an existing, from the 70s hotel of approximately 9,000 square meters, and the outdoor configuration of the existing hotel had already changed drastically the environment. So our basic proposal was quite radical. First step was to demolish the existing building. All these huge volumes will then be arrayed onto the slope into smaller units and would repair the damaged terrain. Following that natural slope, all the roofs are planted, and so from one side the building disappears into the landscape, while from the other side the seafront overflows via pools and other water elements and embodies into the building. Using these 2 elements of design, the once interrupted connection between the slope and the sea has now been restored. Another basic challenging issue needed to be addressed was how to integrate in the design the huge volumes of infrastructure needed. So approximately 4,500 square meters of dining areas, spa areas, parking areas, but also the circulation networks are developing silently below the level of the rooms, disappearing to the landscape, while at the same time the units of the rooms reintroduce the small scale, offering a much needed privacy and unobstructed views to the sea. Having this privilege of this landscape, we didn't need to invent a new idea. The answer was probably right in front of our eyes. All we had to do was to understand and embrace the data of the place and not bypass it. Topography, history, local materials were once again the valuable constants that we needed to redefine and highlight them using all available modern media and architectural vocabulary to create, let's say, a new touristic experience. So Strip House is a project that is now under construction. It is located in Paros Island in the Cyclades again. It was designed on a plot right next to a traditional shipyard. All around Paros Island, ancient shipyards called neosiki have been found scattered all around the island. So those artificial slots on coastal rocks serve the loading of the ships with the famous Parian marble and the retrieval of the ships on the land for repairs. So the basic idea of the residence is a clear reference to this long ancient naval tradition of the island. The composition of the house is based on a very simple idea. The house is placed inside an elongated sandpit between two retaining stone walls. Water rushes in between this linear pit, as once did in the ancient shipyards, creating the communal spaces of the residence. Externally, the building tries to stand silent and tries to assimilate into the landscape by imitating, let's say, a stone fence, a coral, or like a remnant of a building. Centro Ottici concerns the renovation of an optical store in the center of Athens. It was recently completed. So the main idea here was to remove all existing infrastructure and display elements and try to reimagine the product itself as a structural element whose repetition could have the power to produce architectural space. So we created this modular metal curtain which wraps the facade and the eastern wall of the store, creating a multifunctional skin ideal to display the heterogeneous products with a greater degree of freedom, let's say. Wrapping of the mezzanine with large mirrors creates like an endless repetition of that grid, multiplying at the same time the small size of this space. The absence of color, the complete absence of shadows, repetitive and reflective patterns all contribute to create an almost unrealistic and, let's say, symbolic space with only purpose to focus and highlight on the exuberant products that it aims to showcase. Last but not least is Ncaved project, Ncaved residence. We're really proud of the outcome of this project because we moved for 2 years on Serifos Island, so we're really attached to this project. I'll try to be brief and point out some really important elements of the design. So, Ncaved is located again on Serifos Island in Cyclades on Greece on a small rocky cove just hovering above the sea level. The design was the outcome of the thorough research of the Cycladic suburban landscape. Our aim was not to fall into the trap of mimicry and just reproduce the stereotypical and traditional architecture that we usually meet within the settlements. On the contrary, we aimed for a contemporary and daring design which declares its presence, but on the same time, it's trying to be an organic part of this unique landscape. We embrace the cycladic traditional concepts which really stand in the core of our design. One basic aim of the traditional cycladic architecture is the protection of the inhabitants from the severe weather phenomena of the area. In our case, the design was also based on this same idea, creating a shelter. Ncaved is located on the side of a disarming view, but on the same time it is openly exposed to very strong northern winds. So this led us to the decision of drilling the slope instead of arranging a set of spaces in line at ground level. So furthermore, the bioclimatic approach of the design also finds its roots on the traditional cycladic architecture, with the dwellings with the planted roofs. We saw them earlier. We combined passive and active techniques and tried to minimize the energy needs of the house. Another key concept of our approach was the use of local materials, such as stone, which was directly excavated from the plot and used on the walls, but also metal, which we used as a clear reference to the island's rich mining history. The sequence of the spaces aims to create a narration full of emotion and surprises for the inhabitants and the guests. When you approach the building from above, the only thing you can see is just this low linear stone wall parallel to the horizon line. Then the guest dives into the ground via this emblematic staircase, and then the inner patios and all the spaces of the house are revealed. At the end of this route, an emotional explosion, let's say, takes place, where one can finally witness the breathtaking views of the Aegean Sea and the neighboring islands. Filtering of the natural light through perforated and reflective surfaces furthermore stimulates the emotions, which are constantly changed depending the time of the day. The natural feeling of the daylight easily transforms into an esoteric and seductive environment during the night. The use of raw materials, stone, exposed concrete, wood, and also steel, still intensifies the feeling of living inside a natural cavity. Roughness of the materials is combined with an elegance in the handling of the details, creating a simple yet warm and gentle environment, trying to connect to nature, actually. So even if our projects are developing around totally different and original concepts, there is a strong affinity amongst all of them. This affinity lies exactly in the careful reading of the environment and the context of each project, in the clarity of the idea, but most and foremost in the repeatedly and consistently question why that precedes each line that we design. We would like to really thank you once again for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to present our work. And that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stefanos. Let's see if there are any questions for you. C'è qualche domanda per Stefanos? Nessuno. Everybody is very shy.
I will shy myself.
Thank you so much. So let me introduce you to Defne Bozkurt from Ncaved Bozkurt Architecture.
Hello. Let me see. We go like this. Yes. Ah, but it's jumping. Sorry. Yes, okay. Hello. My name is Defne Bozkurt, and I came from Istanbul today to present to you a tiny project in the historic city center of Istanbul. I've come to represent a boutique architecture firm, Cafer Bozkurt Architecture, which is founded in 1971 by my father, Cafer Bozkurt. Before I get into the images and details of this one project, I'd like to say a few brief words about our family context. So my father was born in the historic city center of Istanbul in 1945, which is a time when the population of the city was under 1 million people. So it was a totally different period. And since he has quite a clear photographic memory from his age 10, so 1955, he grew up in a time where there were no bridges across the Bosphorus or no demolition of the urban fabric of the 60s and 80s, and before any dramatic social changes and dramatic urban changes. So he's he has a special favor in his heart for the historic city. But our office has been working on many different scales, many different types of projects, public and private projects. But this was one project that took place, which was right after his work on the historic committee, where he was the president of the historic committee for the historic peninsula. So that brought him back in a way to this ancient context. And a few words to myself. First I studied archaeology and then architecture in the US. So I came back to Turkey to find a very different context to practice architecture in. So it's quite a journey, I would say. So this building is our project is the entrance building to a cistern from the Byzantine period, and it was built by Emperor Theodosius in that period at least, because this is something that we were able to understand from the column heads and the capitals of the cistern. So let me see. Right. And it's a public building, so it was given to us, to our office, from the Istanbul municipality. And unfortunately, we did not have a very big say over the construction or the site work. So as you can see, it's taking place right in the center of the city. You see here the red line, you see is the Mese Street, the old ancient historic line that leads all the way to where you see the number 3, it's Hagia Sophia and Sultan Ahmet underneath. So it's the heart of the ancient city, the Roman and then Byzantine and then Ottoman and then Turkish Republican time. Here you can see the right. So number 5 is the it's the right. Let me see. Right. Right. Our project is right here. And these are all the big cisterns from the Byzantine periods. This dates back to the 5th century BC, AD. the restoration work for the cistern, the underground structure, was not done by our office. It was previously done in 2015. It is based on a column grid of 8 by 4 columns, so 32 columns of 9-meter height. In different periods, there are different urban structures built on this site. So in the 1980s, there was a full building built right on top of it, and it was the municipal city hall, part of the municipal buildings, unfortunately. And right in 2010, the one part of it was demolished, so as to relieve the structure and bring out the original cistern underneath. The Arif Pasha mansion, which still remains today, was restored. Right. And it doesn't look very clear, does it? No. Okay. The location is right on the Messe Street, which is the main circulation axis and the historic circulation axis. And in the diagram on the right, you can see how the other historic structures, like the library and the old turbe, which is a cemetery structure, there are all these isolated, very geometrically particular, like solitaires in the urban context. So we try to scale our building and specify it on our site with respect to those buildings. And as you can see on the site, this was the building that was built on top. Once it was demolished, the structure was visible, and they made a later entrance to it, which we then later, of course, once we started the archaeological work and the construction started, we found the original entrance underneath. And the important thing here is to understand that this is a very dense urban fabric, an historic fabric with a bustling city on top. So it is the main idea for us, the main important idea was to find a way to represent the building underneath, the cistern, to today's public that has no feeling or understanding of what is lying beneath their feet. So we try to put this pattern and axes of the historic cistern geometrically and represent it also on the plazas. So it wasn't just a building or an entrance, but the landscape and the surrounding area that made it special. On the left you see the building, the view of the project before the project started. On the right we still work with models, we still work with paper models, and we try to stay simple in the office. Right. And let me say something here. As you can see on this diagram here on the left, our building is superimposed on the corner of the existing structure, and one of the 4 columns, the structure, is standing on the first column of the original structure. So I will talk about the structure a little bit later, but so you can see a diagram of how we fit the building right on the corner, atop the corner, right there. And from the very beginning, we wanted to find a way to keep the building as light as possible, both in terms of weight as well as in terms of visually. It started out as a glass box with a transparent facade on the outside, and we went through quite a few ideas, but in the end we ended up deciding on a glass louver facade to keep it as transparent as possible. Although, of course, the first problem you would think about is the fact that it's very hot in the summer and a lot of tourists and visitors come to see the cistern, and it would be really, really warm inside. So the solar conditions had to really be taken into consideration. Right. And this is a view from the top of the site, so from the Cistern Plaza, which from this side it looks like it is a two-level building, and this offers an entrance from the top as well as an entrance from below. And as you can see, you see the geometry and scale and color of the historic cistern reflected onto the pavement and onto the materiality of the site. And so this here you can see the entrance from the top, from the Cistern Plaza, and there's a cafe that replaces a previous cafe that used to service the public square. So on this sort of middle level, we designed a small cafe. And the actual entrance is from the lower part of the site, from the Pierre Loti Plaza. And Pierre Loti was a 19th century French Ottoman writer who used to live in Istanbul, so that's an ancient name. So this is the simple entrance with a reflecting pool. You can see it's just a 20 centimeter reflecting pool to give this sort of transition into this, from the very busy street landscape, entering into this glass box, and then from there to enter into the cistern. Right, so you see the steel facade, and for the plans I can go through, but the basement is actually in the end of the presentation. We have some construction slides. You will see, because the first project that we worked on, we did not have this basement, but once the excavation started on the site, we found the foundations of the previous building that was sitting on top of this cistern. So once we started excavating all the rubble that was infill, we had a huge space. So we started rethinking the project and putting all the amenities and services in the basement. So there was a second project because of that. And you see the sections, very simple, actually extremely simple, and I think that's kind of what drew us to the project, because we work on different scales, on urban design scales, bigger factories and opera buildings and concert houses. So with this tiny building, we could just feel that delicacy and the care we had to take working in this context. Right, so these are the renders. Of course, because of the municipality taking over with the construction, we were never able to really end up with the same images that we wanted to in the end, but it is a well-used museum today with various activities. Because of the water element, there are a lot of multimedia activities that are done, and music is also part of that. You see the simple the construction drawings, and yes, so with the structure, the three columns of the four columns are sitting on their own weight, but the one column is sitting right on top of the original column. So we had to be careful about that. So most of the weight is diverted to these three columns that are not sitting on the historic structure. That was an important factor. Right. And we will have, yes, some interior images. You can see, so it's a very multifaceted, flexible space in a way. And during the construction, it was quite an endeavor. And you see the the entrance, which was totally invisible before because of the building that was sitting on top. And some of the restoration work from the outside of the original stone construction, the original cistern walls. And the building behind with the plaza landscape. Right, so on the right side you see the original entrance, so we kept that and reinforced it. And the glass facade. And that's the end, yes. So, if you have any questions.
Are there any questions?
What about the material that you use?
Yeah, well, it is you see the glass and steel and glass and very simple plywood walls on the inside, so drywall on the inside of the glass box, and nothing else. I mean, the concrete in the basement and the foundations. So, yes.
Ci sono altre domande? No? Ok. Thank you so much, Defne. Thank you.
Right.
I'm happy to call on stage Helmut Dietrich from Dietrich Untertrifaller Architekten. Is it correct, the pronunciation?
Yeah, good evening and thank you for the invitation. I was asked to talk about one project tonight. It's very hard to focus on just one project, but I almost will follow this order. Just a few words about Dietrich Untertrifaller Architects. I did my studies in Vienna and Technical University, also did Much Untertrifaller, and we are working together since this time. Even we have founded our office a bit later. I was working with Hermann Kaufmann, which is well known about his timber construction works. And we were working together for 7 years. And in the early 90s, because of some competitions we won, Much Untertrifaller and me founded our office. And today we have 5 offices in different cities. One is Bregenz, which was your original one, then Vienna, Munich, Paris, and St. Gallen in Switzerland. And altogether we are working with about 120 architects today. But that is not my main interest, that the company becomes bigger and bigger. My interest is to create architecture which is also sustainable, which is has a long period, which is where it keeps its value, and to use materials which are beautiful, like wood. I like it very much to work with wood, and so my focus is on that things. Today I show you the elementary school in Höchst in Austria. It's as you can see, it's a single-story building. It was a competition, I think 5-6 years ago, and the original school, the competition was 2013, and the construction was finished in 17. It's a school with 8 classes, and in this site there was a school from the 60s, which was not worth to refurbish, and so the Höchst made a competition, and there were very different projects. We had the only project which was just one story. Some were 2, 3, up to 4 stories, but we were, and we are still very convinced that for the very small children from 6 to 10, it's better to have this horizontal way of school instead of the multi-story building. As you can see, the town of Höchst is basically single-family houses, not very big, not very large. It's small houses, and especially this area where the school, this is not the center school of Höchst, it's in the outskirts more or less, and the surrounding are these small houses. There's also, it doesn't work, there on the right side from the school there is also a gardening center, and there are several commercial sites, but mostly single-family houses. The project is very close to Lake Constance. Lake Constance is 1 kilometer from the site to the north, and Switzerland, here where I am, is already Switzerland, so you can a bit imagine where the house is. The school is a cluster school. It's the system which is very much focused to the new educational needs, and you see the 4 clusters which are separated by small courtyards. Each cluster has 2 classrooms, has a smaller room for smaller groups. It has the restrooms and the wardrobe, a room for the teacher, and the center, which is very important, is the learning area, which is connected to the classrooms. This wall is also transparent, so the teachers can also see what happens outside. But these two classes are fixed together to one of these clusters. And every cluster has also this outdoor area which is open to this gardening center. It's very close to it, so we participate, the school participates on the plants, on the gardens, and the gardening center is participating by the light. We didn't build 3-story high, so they get more light to their plants, and so we are both have a good combination of how to share the space. This is the main road. It's about 100 meters. The whole building is 40 to 100 meters. Here you have the special class, that's the library, and the entrance with a room for event. And right to the top there is the gymnasium, which is the only space which is digged down to the ground. And it's, of course, it has a normal height of 7-8 meters. Yeah, that shows a bit more detailed what I told before. This is the underground area of the gymnasium and the fitting rooms. That's the section with the one-story building, and the only thing which is higher than this normal 3-meter rooms is the learning center, which is like a chapel, which becomes the light from the vertical. That's the view from the gardening center, and you see 2 classes, and in between this small courtyard, which is for outdoor education, but also for working with plants, growing plants, working with different materials, and so on and so on. And the whole building from the basement is wood, and we were very much focused on a very simple construction. That's one of the picture with the entrance and with the gymnasium. The gardening area, and that's a part of these courtyards where the children have possibility to grow their own plants and to look after and to see how it works. On the right side you can see the glass houses, and it's as well more or less private playground for the group, for the 2 classes, which is shaded a bit by the timber construction. We left the wood completely untreated. We didn't put any color or any treatment on it, so it turns into gray, and after a while the building will be very integrated into nature, into the green. We have also the playground, we have the sport facilities around, and here you can see very well the level of the buildings, which is very low, and so we didn't want to create a very strong and important building in between. And on the other side of the valley, you can see the first mountains of the Alps. The entrance area, and this is the entrance, which is also used as a place for events, for school events, and there is also the school restaurant beside, so this place has a function of a marketplace before you start to walk on this main street. That's one of these learning centers with the computers, with the connection to the outside, with this roof, And as you can see, there is also there are the windows to the classrooms, which are connected very well to this central space. The construction, as I said, is very simple. You have these laminated beams, a very simple acoustic surface between the beams, here acoustic, which is very cheap and very functional. And you have also the walls, which are in CLT. And our idea was, because of course a one-story building is more expensive than a compact four-story building. So we had to think about the costs, and we tried to create a construction which is almost finished when the woodworkers leave. We don't have a lot of coverings, of boards to be put on the main construction, but the main construction comes from the industry. You put it in the place and it's finished. You just have to protect it during the works, that it's not that it doesn't become in touch with water, and that's the main thing. All these walls are with 2 layers. In between there is insulation, and that's it. No further covering. Only the chapel, the roof of the chapel has its covering. Yeah, that's the working place, the workshop for the students, the library. We have a very simple floor, epoxy floor. And that's this main road, which looks quite narrow, but isn't narrow. And the look to the gymnasium, which is also a very simple construction. The fitting rooms, and the gymnasium. Yeah, and here are 2 pictures from construction. Yeah, here you can see this 2-layer CLTs, which were protected, and the CLT roof, and the ground floor with the heating, the very simple beam construction, and that's it. I have to show you how it came to this project, because we started much earlier with a bigger project in timber construction. It was a competition in 2001, and it was the school was finished in 2003. This is the school. That's the gymnasium, and this was in the early days when it was finished, with this copper facade, which is a perforated copper shading of the south facade, and the classrooms and the special classrooms underground. That was the first. That's an actual picture which was taken some months ago with the new gymnasium. With the headrats, the copper facade became dark, almost black. That's the way it looks today. The wood isn't as clear anymore, but it looks very lively, and yeah, I think it's a good place to be for the children. It's the 10 to 14 years old. And here you have the classrooms on the right side, which are getting light from both sides, from outside, but also from this inner courtyard. And the classrooms are connected to the corridor with bridges. So you have this both side light. On the right picture, there is the entrance hall with the library in the first floor. And that is the corridor with the changing areas and the bridges to the classes. Classroom, and that's the gymnasium, which is double. You can separate it with a curtain. And we have these pyramids to get the light in, which makes a very clear and very a bright light, but without any direct sun coming to the playground or to the area where the students are. That's the outside. And two projects in France. The one is from 2018. It's a college in Lamballe. It's in Bretagne. The schools are a bit different in France than in Austria or in Germany. The basement is a concrete construction. Inside is wood. As you can see here, it's a bit like the school in Klaus with the bridges to the classes, but more simple in construction. That's what we learned in France. It's better to keep timber construction simple and easy. And that's the same structure with the acoustic elements. And the last one is a bit older, is from 2015, is very close to the other one in Bron, in Bretagne. And here you have these areas with the kitchen, with the restaurant, and the classrooms are upstairs. And here also these constructions, the handrails are beams, which are important for the construction. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Helmut. Are there any questions from the public? No? Nessuna domanda? Okay. So, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. So, see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. for the second session of ArchInTrend by Platform. Thank you so much.